Hello and welcome to UPSC Backbenchers. My name is Shashank Roy and let's talk about today's topic. Today is 4th of July 2025 and we are going to do a holistic analysis of the Hindu newspaper. What are we going to do? In today's The Hindu newspaper, we will cover a total of 8 topics one by one. We will give you a primer of all these 8 topics. So, one is editorial, and the remaining 7 are coming from different sections of the Hindu, such as text and context, science, business, economy, etc. So we'll give you a primer, we'll give you a brief introduction about all these 7 topics one by one, and then we will go back to editorial analysis and we will cover it in detail, covering prelims plus mains aspects, and we will also design a model question paper for UPSC mains. Let's talk about today's articles. Center to gather support to remove Justice Verma. This article is related to Justice Yashwant Verma, who was a Delhi High Court judge. Few months back, he was on a vacation and there was a fire incident in his residence. When Delhi police and the fire team entered into his house to douse the flame, they got to know that there were bundles of 500 notes currency and they were half burned. The matter was reported to the Supreme Court. Ex-Chief Justice of India Sanjeev Khanna. An internal committee was constituted, which was a 3-member committee. This committee did an investigation. An investigation report was submitted to ex-CJI Sanjeev Khanna. Now this report was again forwarded to the Prime Minister of India and the President. As of now, Justice Yashwant Verma has been transferred to Allahabad High Court, but no work has been assigned to him. Now the government is planning to remove him from the office. So Center is gathering support to remove Justice Verma. In this article, we will talk about judicial corruption, and the past incidences when the process of removal of judges was initiated and what was the result. We will also talk about the difference between removal and impeachment and the grounds on the basis of which a judge can be removed from his office. So this is what we are going to talk about. The second article is coming from Global South Voice, Key to Contemporary World Progress. Now, Prime Minister Modi is traveling to 5-nation tour, longest travel, and it is known as Global South Outreach Program. Global South Outreach Program. In this travel plan, Prime Minister Modi will he has already traveled Ghana, then he will go to Trinidad and Tobago, then he will travel to Brasilia to attend BRICS summit, then he will be in Argentina. Remember, Argentina is one of the most resourceful country in terms of lithium. And then we have Namibia. I hope you remember the translocation of cheetahs from Namibia to India in Kuno National Park. So this article is important. In this article, we'll talk about all these countries and the relations with these countries, strategic relations to be precise. Strategic relations with these countries. What is the meaning of Global South? Right? What are the challenges and associated with Global South and how India can become a voice of Global South? Okay, so this is what we are going to discuss in detail. The third article is related to editorial. Socialism, secularism are the spirit of the constitution, written by M.A. Baby. We will come back to this editorial after some time. Next is coming, can the Supreme Court halt an act passed by a state? This matter is related to Chhattisgarh government. And this is, in this article, we will understand what exactly is contempt of court. Next is indigenous defense procurement worth 1.05 lakh cleared. Why this article is important? In the past few years, UPSC has started asking about defense equipments, the missile systems, right? Military exercises, or the matter related to national security is also important. So in this article, we will talk about Defense Acquisition Council and the salient features of QRSAM missile. What is QRSAM? Quick Response Surface to Air Missile. Because UPSC might ask these questions. Next is rare earth crunch, a bigger issue for auto firms than expected. Why this article is important? Because in the past, rare earth related question was, rare earth material related question was there in UPSC prelims. So rare earth material or strategic minerals. Both are two different things. There is a slight difference between rare earth minerals or strategic minerals. We all know that there is a China has banned completely banned export of rare earth materials. Rare earth material, I'll give you certain examples such as beryllium, cobalt, lithium, niobium, right? Strontium. These are some of the example of critical minerals or rare earth minerals. Now, India is deficient in all these materials. That's why India is trying to come up with strategic relation with these countries and create a supply chain. Now, what this news is all about, in the past few months, Tata and Maruti Suzuki companies have come into the limelight. Why? Because China has banned the export of rare earth magnets. Rare earth magnets. What is the use of rare earth magnets? Rare earth magnets are used in braking system. In braking system of the cars. But China has banned it. As a result, Tata and Suzuki motor companies are forced to bring down their production, and this article is all about this, how to cope up, how to manage the rare earth materials, and what if China is weaponizing the rare earth material, can we create an alternative supply chain? This is what we are going to discuss here. Next is endocrine disruption in plastic waste. Now plastic waste, here we are not talking about the plastic waste, we are talking about the microplastic. We are talking about microplastics and how microplastics are entering into our internal system of our body, internal systems of our body, impacting our health, fertility, hormones, and leading to fatal diseases. So this is related to microplastic and impact of microplastics. Next article is related to a new Bharat establishing healthy aging parameters for the Indian population. Why this article holds significance? Because demographic dividend has become a buzzword. Demographic dividend has become a buzzword. India is a country with youngest population in the world. If you look at UPSC paper in the past 2-3 years, you'll find that UPSC has asked questions related to declining fertility rate across Southeast Asia, primarily Southeast Asia, China, Japan, Vietnam, and South Korea. Again, this is not a phenomena only associated with Southeast Asian countries. India is also going to face a problem associated with aging population. So this article can be clubbed under population and associated issues. Right? Demography. India's demographic window will be continued till 2000. It's from 2030 to 2050, and after that, India's population will start shrinking. It is estimated that by 2050, India will have a 26% out of the total population above 60 years, means grey population. old age population. So this is a big and integrated topic. First, let's complete editorial and then we'll be back to these topics again. So here it is. Editorial analysis says socialism, secularism are the spirit of the constitution, written by M.A. Baby, who is the Secretary General of the Communist Party of India. So let's start with editorial analysis. But first of all, have a look at the preamble of the Indian Constitution, which is also known as the horoscope of the Constitution, the identity card of the Constitution. Because by looking at the Constitution, you get to know that what kind of principles or values are enshrined in the Constitution. So as of now, this editorial is talking about socialist and secular, two keywords, and why these words have become a buzzword in political circle. So let me give you a historical context and then we will talk about this editorial one by one. So this article says, what if I told you that the soul of our constitution is under attack? That there are efforts to erase two words from our preamble, secular and socialist. These words that don't just decorate the constitution, they define it. These are not only two words, socialist and secular. They don't only decorate the preamble, they also define the values enshrined in the constitution. Now, why the article talks about it? Because from the top leaders of the ruling party to ideological influencers, there is a silent war is underway to rewrite the values of the republic by removing socialist and secular from the Indian constitution. It all started with 25th of June. 2025. Why? Because on this day, central government started Samvidhan Murder Day, Samvidhan Hatya Divas, or the Constitution Murder Day. So, do you think that Constitution was murdered on this day? No. If you go in history, on 25th of June 1975, emergency was imposed, and on 25th of June 2025, it completed 50 years of emergency. So on the completion of 50 years of emergency, BJP organized Samvidhan Hatya Divas to commemorate this incident. The event served as a reminder of the suspension of fundamental rights. During emergency, fundamental rights were suspended, press freedom was suppressed, and a political repression took place during that period. Again, on this occasion, those people were also honored who resisted the emergency and defended democracy. But there were few political personalities who came up with scathing remarks against preamble and especially these two keywords, socialist and secular. Socialist and secular. Our Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar said that adding socialist secular to preamble is sacrilege to spirit of Sanatan. In the words of Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar, adding socialist secular to preamble is sacrilege to spirit of Sanatan. What do you mean by sacrilege? Means something that is not respectful, something that is abusive, something that is unacceptable. He was not the only one. RSS General Secretary Dattatreya Hosable said that the words secular and socialist in preamble to the constitution should be reviewed. Again, there are other ministers such as Shivraj Singh Chauhan, who is the agriculture minister, Jitendra Singh, and Himanta Biswa Sharma, who is the chief minister of Assam. He also voiced the opinion that the inclusion of socialist and secular words should be reviewed. Now, why there is a chorus of protest against these two words in the preamble of the constitution? So let's start with the background. I'll give you some context. The emergency started on 25th of June 1975. The emergency continued for 21 months, and after that, during these 21 months, fundamental rights were completely suppressed. Press freedom was completely subjugated. All the opinions were completely trampled. All the liberties were trampled. Judiciary's wings were clipped. And after that, in 1976, Indira Gandhi took the initiative to include two words, socialist and secular. Socialist and secular was added by 42nd Amendment Act 1976 during emergency under Indira Gandhi government. After that, emergency was over, general elections took place and Janata Dal government came to power. When Janata Dal came to power, Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister of India, and he started to undo all the wrong things done during emergency. And in order to undo all these things, he came up with 42nd Amendment Act 1976. But he changed many things. He reversed many of the decisions taken place during emergency, but he didn't touch socialist and secular in the preamble. He left it as it is, and it is still a part of Indian Constitution. But now the political influencers or the political parties in belonging to BJP or the RSS, they have started protesting that since socialist and secular was given birth during emergency, this must be removed. This must be reviewed, and since it was not a part of the original constitution, why should we keep it? There must be a debate, there must be a discussion, and there must be review to remove these two keywords. Now, the editorial, the writer of this article, M.A. Baby, this is what he is highlighting. That the attack on these two words, why the opposition parties are attacking only these two words? What is their agenda? What is their motive? Is it only the changes related to some sentences or some words? No, it is bigger than that. In the words of M.A. Baby, he says that the attack on these words is not about semantics. The attack on these words is not about semantics, means it's not about changing few words, or it's not about changing certain sentence, but it's about altering the entire philosophy of the constitution. It is not only about changing the words or sentences or the expression. It is all about changing the entire philosophy, changing the entire values of the constitution on the basis of which it has been founded. It is an attempt to change the very philosophy of India's republic from a plural democracy to a majoritarian theocracy. So, why he also elaborates, why attack these terms? Why attack these terms? Because secularism, when we talk about secularism, it means secularism challenges the majoritarian narrative. Majoritarian narratives. Now, what the ruling dispensation or the RSS is propagating, that we are a Hindu Rashtra. We are a Hindu Rashtra, and Hindus, this country belongs to Hindus. And when you talk about, and this is the majority narrative set by the ruling dispensation. Now, when you talk about secular in the preamble, and the preamble when it is a visiting card or the identity card or the horoscope of the constitution, it becomes problematic for a ruling dispensation or a political party who is trying to set a majoritarian narrative. Now, this is the problem with the secular. Now, let's talk about socialism. What is the problem with socialism? Socialism challenges unbridled capitalism and caste class hierarchies. Both empower citizens over identity or wealth, and that is precisely the problem with two keywords, socialist and secular. Now let's understand socialist and secular words in the context of fundamental right, fundamental duties, directive principles of state policies, and preamble. It has been said that since socialist and secular were added in the constitution by 42nd Amendment Act 1976, and these two keywords were not a part of the original constitution. So what does that mean? Does that mean that before inclusion of the socialist and secular words in the preamble, do you think that Indian constitution was not a socialist and secular in nature or character? So the writer says that what was added even before adding the socialist and secular in the Indian constitution, it was implicitly mentioned. It was implicitly mentioned in the constitution. it was implicitly mentioned in the Constitution. And what 42nd Amendment Act 1976 did, what was implicitly mentioned till 1976 had been mentioned explicitly. Right? So what was not mentioned implicitly before 42nd Amendment Act 1976 was explicitly mentioned by 1976 amendment. But if you say that these words were not added into the original constitution, hence it should be removed, no matter whether these words were added or not added, Indian constitution was always socialist and secular in its principle, which was reflected in fundamental right, directive principle of state policy, and preamble. Now let me take you through certain articles of fundamental right which will give you a glimpse of India's secular credentials even before the addition of this word. Even before addition of this word. For example, Article 14 talks about equality before law. Article 14 talks about equality before law. Article 15 talks about equality and prohibits discrimination. Article 16 talks about equal opportunity in public employment. If you read all these three articles in triangle, Article 14, Article 15, Article 16, along with preamble plus DPSP, you will get to know that Indian constitution was always secular in its credentials. These articles are straight away reflecting that India was always a secular constitution or secular nation. Now let's talk about socialist, directive principle of state policies to understand the word socialist. If we talk about directive principle of state policies, these are directions by the constitution to the ruling dispensation that how the government or governance should be handled. Article 38 talks about promotion of welfare of the people. Article 39 talks about prevent wealth concentration. Article 41 talks about right to work. That's why we have Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Guarantee Scheme. Article 42 talks about humane working condition. Article 43 talks about living wage and decent standard of life. So these are the directives from the constitution to the state, that these are the things that you have to keep in mind while framing any law or legislation. So these articles directly show in clear terms that India always followed socialist principles in Indian constitution. Though directive principle of state policy is non-justiciable but influential in policy and legislation. If we talk about some example, we have right to education. We have Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, which substantiate that yes, India was always socialist in its character. Now, let's talk about secularism in fundamental right. Article 25 to 28. Article 25 to 28 talks about freedom of religion. Article 29 to 30 talks about cultural and educational rights of minorities. Even before 1976 amendment, even before inclusion of socialist and secular or amendment of 1976, these were the fundamental rights. Freedom of religion was already there. Cultural and educational rights of minorities was already there. Apart from that, liberty of thought, belief, faith and worship was already there in the constitution. There was a word fraternity assuring the dignity of the individual. So there is no denying, there is no doubt that even before 42nd Amendment Act 1976, Indian constitution was socialist and secular in nature. It's just that it was implicitly mentioned. It was implicitly mentioned in the constitution, and what 42nd Amendment did, it made it explicit. So even if there is no socialist and secular, the frame or the value system or the principles of the constitution will never be changed. Now let's talk about judicial endorsement. Let's talk about judicial endorsement because multiple petitions were filed for the same thing. Multiple petitions were filed in the Supreme Court that socialists and secular were not a part of the original constitution, hence they be removed. In Keshwanand Bharti case 1973, Supreme Court said that Parliament can amend any part of the constitution, but they cannot alter the basic structure doctrine. Basic structure of the constitution. Now 1973 basic structure doctrine was evolved. 1975 emergency was imposed. But again, in further judicial pronouncement, Supreme Court also said that secularism is also a part of basic structure of the constitution. Secularism is also a part of basic structure of the constitution. See the chronology. 1973, Supreme Court came up with basic structure doctrine and said that Parliament has the power to amend any part of the constitution, but without disturbing the basic structure of the constitution. In 1975, emergency was imposed. In 1994, S.R. Bommai case, Supreme Court declared that secularism is a part of basic structure, means any attempt to destroy the secular character of the constitution will be declared ultra vires. Team, I hope it is clear. It is clear cut statement from the Supreme Court. In 1994, when secularism became a part of the basic structure, it means that any attempt on the part of the legislator to amend anything that destroys the secular credentials, secular character of the constitution will be created unconstitutional ultra vires. So again, in 2024, there was a petition filed in the Supreme Court and which demanded that secular and socialist be removed from the constitution. But Supreme Court gave a rebuttal that adding secular and socialist did not violate the basic structure of the constitution. So this is what this article talks about in detail. Now, it also says that in this article, this writer is giving a reference to Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar's statement. What Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar said in the Constituent Assembly. On 25th of November 1949, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar said that we are entering a life of contradiction. We have political equality. But social and economic inequality. Now, Ambedkar was never against secularism or socialism. He wanted equality not just in law but in life as well. And to substantiate, to ensure that we are having equality, political equality along with social and economic equality, we have socialist and secular in the Indian Constitution. So, towards the conclusion of this article, what the writer says, that even if these words were removed tomorrow, the soul of the constitution cannot be erased, because secularism and socialism were not added. They were inherent part of the preamble of the constitution. They were inherent part. They were the spirit. They were the soul of the Indian constitution when it was created. So even tomorrow, if the secular or socialist will be removed, it will not make any impact. But the Supreme Court has only reminded us of what our constitution already knew. But it is now our duty, teachers, students and voters, to protect it. Ruling dispensation or the RSS or different elements are trying to remove these two keywords because there is an agenda to establish majoritarian rule in India, and which will be damaging for Indian constitution or India as a democracy. So in concluding remark, the writer says that if this session made you reflect on the soul of the constitution, do share it. Let's ensure India remains what its founder dreamed of, not a theocracy but a democratic republic. So I hope that you are clear about different provisions of the directive principle of state policies, secular credentials of the Indian constitution, what is the importance of socialist and secular when they were added, what was the purpose of adding these two words, Now, I also covered the history related to emergency. And now, in the second session, we will cover all the articles, all the remaining 7 articles one by one. But for now, we will take a break. Thank you so much. Wish you a wonderful day ahead. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.